Knit a beginner-friendly beanie hat in the round in this step-by-step pattern tutorial. Once you know how to do a knit stitch and a purl stitch, you can make this hat. With 8 sizes to choose from, you can knit hats for all ages. Plus, get your free printable PDF pattern to accompany this video tutorial at craftfix.com/beanie or click the link in the description below. You need worsted or aran weight yarn, aka medium 4 weight yarn in the US. Just 1 small ball for the baby sizes, or 2 small balls or 1 big ball for a child or adult hat. Wool or acrylic works well because it's stretchy and keeps its shape. I'd avoid cotton because it's not elastic. Ideally, the gauge on your ball band should be 18 stitches and 24 rows to 4 inches or 10 centimetres. But this doesn't have to match exactly. You also need a short 16-inch or 40 centimetre 5mm circular needle. But if your ball band has the right 18 by 24 gauge for a different needle size, maybe 4.5 or 5.5mm, use that size instead. You can of course knit this hat with a set of double pointed needles instead, or use a long circular needle using the magic loop technique. But I'll be using a short circular for this tutorial. You'll also need a stitch marker, a tapestry needle for closing the top of the hat and weaving in your yarn ends, a measuring tape or ruler, and a scissors. A couple of nice to haves are 1. A short DPN or a straight cable needle, any thickness up to 5mm. This makes knitting the final few rounds of the hat easier. And 2. A spare circular needle, also any thickness up to 5mm. You can use this to try on your hat as you knit for a perfect fit. Here's a table with the measurements for all 8 hat sizes. I'll refer to these size names in the pink headings throughout this tutorial. If you're unsure which size to make, wrap a measuring tape around the person's head. Then choose the size that matches their head circumference, or the next size up if they're between sizes. For example, if their head circumference is 23 inches, make the XL size. This pattern includes 3 height options: a fitted cap, a slouchy hat, and a hat with the rib turned up. But the hat height is fully adjustable. By simply knitting more rounds of rib or stockinette, you can customise the fit. Let's get started. First, cast on the number of stitches for the size you want to knit. For the 4 baby sizes, cast on 56 stitches for a newborn hat, 64 for a 3 to 6 month old, 72 for age 6 to 12 months, and 76 for a toddler. For kids, cast on 80 stitches for a young child and 84 stitches for a teenager. And finally for adults, cast on 88 stitches for a one-size hat that should fit most heads, or 96 stitches if you prefer a loose fit or are knitting for a larger head. I recommend using the long tail cast on, which is nice and stretchy for ribbing and works well for knitting in the round. This can look crazy complicated if you've never done it before. Don't worry, I've a separate 5-minute tutorial showing you how to do this step by step, linked on screen now and in the description below. Once you get the hang of it, this cast on is the best. You can also use a different cast on if you prefer. But just be aware that joining in the round will look slightly different for you versus my demo. You'll need to leave quite a long tail for the cast on, at least 3 and a bit times the circumference of your head or hat. To make things easy, I've listed out a minimum tail length to leave for each hat size here. I'm making the adult size hat, so my tail is 72 inches long. Let's cast on. After your long tail, make a slip knot on your circular needle tip. Place your yarn ball at your top left and your tail end below. Make an L shape with your left hand, wrapping the tail end around your thumb and the yarn end around your forefinger, holding the ends in your hand. And then start casting on all your stitches onto your circular needle tip. So I've cast on all my 88 stitches for an adult hat now, but an optional extra step here for a super neat join is to cast on an extra stitch, 1 more than we need for our hat. Now it's time to join to start knitting in the round. So first, get rid of any twists in your cast on. You want all your stitches facing the same way, with the bumpy side looking like purl stitches facing you. This means your yarn ball and tail will be on the right hand side. Make sure your stitches are spread out so they're close to both tips. Now you're ready to join. I'll explain this key step now, but if you've never knit in the round before and need extra help, see my beginner's join in the round tutorial linked on screen now and in the description below to see this in more detail. Hold a tip in each hand with the yarn tail hanging down from your right tip and your working yarn hanging behind it. If you didn't cast on the optional extra stitch, just bring your needle tips together and knit the first stitch on your left tip with your right tip to do a basic join to start knitting in the round. But if you did cast on the extra stitch, here's how we use it to do a neater join in 2 simple steps. Step 1. Move the first stitch on your left tip over to the right tip. Put your right tip into it from right to left so you don't twist the stitch. And step 2. Pass the second stitch on your right tip, which is the extra stitch, over the first stitch. That's our extra stitch gone. Give both ends a good tug to tighten up and you've a super neat join all done. That's the hard part done. Let's start knitting. Place a marker for the start of the round and we're going to do 1 by 1 ribbing for the bottom of our hat. This means with your working yarn behind, you knit the first stitch. And then bring your yarn forward and purl the second stitch. Bring your yarn back and knit the next stitch. And bring your yarn forward and purl the next stitch. So you knit every odd stitch and purl every even stitch. Continue in this knit 1 purl 1 pattern until you reach your end of round marker. I've 4 stitches left here and you can see the yarn tail hanging down in front of the last 2 stitches. That hangs loose at first, so when you get to the very last stitch, it helps to hold the tail in your left hand as you purl it. That's round 1 all done. Now we just move our marker and knit another round of rib. So just like last time, with your yarn behind, knit the first stitch. Then bring your yarn forward and purl the next stitch. It's easier to keep track after the first round because you just knit the knit stitches and purl the purl ones. You can already see how neat the join is, making a nice, smooth, continuous line. Now just continue your knit 1, purl 1 rib pattern until the end of the round. So here I am at the end of round 2, and I'm actually going to stop using a round marker for now, because my yarn tail clearly hangs down before the last purl stitch. So the yarn tail is a built-in marker. It saves the faff of moving a marker every round, but keep using one if you like. But one thing you might be worried about right now is that your hat looks way too small. Like, there's no way this would ever fit over your head, right? Don't worry, it should look way too small at first. If it looks big enough at the start, it will end up ginormous. That's a good knitting tip to know, whether you're making a hat, sock, sweater, or whatever. If I compare it with a finished hat, it does look really small. But your stitches are bunched up on the short circular needle, and it's only when you knit a few inches that you see the true size. Still not convinced? Here's the proof. If I put my stitches on a much longer circular needle instead, ta-da! As if by magic, the hat suddenly looks much bigger. The very same stitches, just on a different needle. Mind blown. Do as many rounds of knit 1, purl 1 rib stitch as you want. I suggest 5 rounds for small baby hats, 7 rounds for 6 months and toddlers, and 9 rounds for all other sizes. Here's my adult hat after 9 rounds, which gives me a 4 centimetres or 1.5 inch band of ribbing. Knit more rounds if you wish. If you want to turn up the rib for extra warmth, definitely knit a bit more rib. For this folded cuff option, I suggest doing 7 rounds of rib for small baby hats, 10 rounds for 6 months and toddlers, and 13 to 17 rounds for all other sizes, depending on personal preference. Once you're happy with your rib, it's time to start the simple stockinette part. Yay! There's no need to change needle size, just switch to knitting every stitch and that's it. So knit the first stitch of the round as usual. Then the next stitch is a purl stitch, but now you just knit it instead. And then just keep going, knitting every single stitch all the way around. Easy peasy. I'm at the end of the first round of stockinette now, and if you're still using a marker, I'd encourage you to ditch it for now. Your yarn tail shows you where the end of the round is, and there's no need to know exactly which stitch is the first one here. Without the fuss of a marker, you can enjoy knitting round and round. Bliss! Here's how my adult hat looks after knitting about 3 inches in total. It's nice and stretchy and really starting to take shape. Now, unless you're knitting a baby hat, if you have any doubts about the size, I recommend trying the hat on at this stage if possible. You won't be able to do this with your stitches on your short circular though. The head is bigger than your circular, so you'll lose stitches off your needle if you try it on. Disaster! So the easiest way to try on the hat is to move some stitches onto a spare circular needle first. It doesn't have to be super long like this one, and it doesn't have to be the same 5mm thickness as your short circular either. It can't be thicker, but any thinner size will work well. In fact, a thinner needle is quicker to move your stitches across to. So with your spare circular tip in your right hand, put it into each stitch on your left tip from right to left to slip it across without twisting the stitch. You can do this one by one, or if you've a really thin circular like my 2mm one, you can weave it through and move a bunch of stitches together. I actually prefer to move stitches one at a time, even if it's a bit slower. As a rough guide, move about half your stitches over to the spare circular. The key thing is you want your stitches clear of your short circular tips when you spread them out, so that all your stitches stay nice and safe on the cable. Now you can safely try on your hat. Strike a pose and see how it feels. Hopefully fabulous. To get back to knitting, simply move your stitches back to your short circular tip. So with your short circular tip in your left hand and your spare circular in your right, just reverse the process. Working one stitch at a time, put your short circular tip into each stitch on your spare circular from left to right to slip it back onto it. Once all your stitches are safely back on your short circular, continue knitting round and round again, just like before. How many rounds you knit depends both on the size you're making and the style of hat you want. Here's a table showing how many inches to knit in total, including both your rib and stockinette parts, before you start shaping the crown. If you want a fitted hat, this ranges from 3 inches for a newborn to 5 inches for a child, right up to 6 3/4 inches for the largest adult size. I'm knitting a fitted adult beanie here, so I've knit 6 inches. If you want a slouchy hat, I suggest knitting for around 3 3/4 inches for a newborn, 6 inches for a child, or just over 8 inches for the largest size. Now if you want to knit a cuffed beanie, where you turn the ribbing up for extra warmth, follow these same lengths, but only measure your stockinette part. Since you will turn the ribbing up, it doesn't count towards the hat height. Now these lengths are just suggestions. You can easily adjust the hat height by knitting more rounds here for extra slouch, more room for hair, or whatever. Here's how much longer your hat will be by the end, to help you decide whether you want to knit more rounds now. If you're making a newborn or 3 to 6 months hat, your finished hat will be about 2 inches longer than it is now. If you're knitting a hat for a toddler or teen, it will end up about 2.5 inches longer. And all the other sizes, 6 to 12 months, child, adult and XL, will be about 3 inches longer at the end. Once you're happy with your hat height, it's time to start decreasing to shape the crown. If you removed your marker for the easy stockinette part, add it back now to help you keep track. There are 1 to 3 decrease sections, depending on the hat size you're knitting. If you're making the 2 smallest baby sizes, for a newborn or 3 to 6 month old, you only do the final decrease section. So skip 2 timestamps ahead now to the main crown decreases. Otherwise, we'll do some minor shaping first. So once you're knitting the 6 month size or larger, on the next round you're going to decrease 4 stitches evenly around. Here's the instruction for every size. It's easier than it looks. You just split your stitches into 4 quarters, knit the first 2 stitches together to decrease a stitch, and then knit the rest of that quarter as usual. So with your start of round marker in place, put your right tip through both the first 2 stitches from left to right. Then knit both stitches together. So that's the first knit 2 together decrease done. Now just go ahead and knit the rest of the stitches in the first quarter as usual. If you're knitting the adult size like me, you knit the next 20 stitches, but knit the number of stitches listed for your size here. Then just repeat for the next quarter. So start by putting your tip into the next 2 stitches and knitting them together. That's the second knit 2 together decrease done. And then knit every stitch until you reach the next quarter, and so on. By the end of the round, you've decreased 4 stitches evenly around. I've marked them here so you can see. It's okay if you lose count and your decreases don't have exactly the same gap between them. No need to rip back. Just make sure you make 4 decreases. My adult hat now has 84 stitches. Here's the number of stitches left for all sizes. You can stop concentrating now. Phew! Next, you just knit 3 rounds even. That means you just knit every stitch, round and round like before. Yay! So here's how the hat looks after the 3 even rounds. You can see the first knit 2 together decrease here where you lose a stitch column, and then 3 more rounds knit above. If you're knitting a toddler or teen hat, that's your minor shaping all done. Skip to the next timestamp to start the main crown decreases. But if you're knitting either the 6 to 12 month, child, adult or XL hat, you repeat these last 4 rounds to decrease by another 4 stitches. So in the next round, you split your stitches in quarters and decrease 4 stitches evenly around, just like before. Here's the instruction for every size. The only difference from last time is that now there's 1 less stitch to knit between each knit 2 together decrease, because there's 4 fewer stitches now than before. So start the round by putting your right tip through both the first 2 stitches from left to right. Then knit both stitches together, and that's the first knit 2 together decrease done. Then just knit the rest of the stitches in the quarter. That's 19 this time for my adult hat, but knit the number of stitches listed here for your size. Now it's time for the next decrease. So put your right tip into both the next 2 stitches and knit that pair of stitches together. That's the second knit 2 together done, and now just knit until you're at the halfway point. That's another 19 stitches for me. Then just repeat for the other 2 quarters. So by the end of the round, you've decreased by 4 more stitches. Like last time, I've marked them here so you can see exactly where they are. But if yours are in slightly different spots, nobody will notice. Once you space your 4 decreases out, it's all good. My adult hat now has 80 stitches left. Here are the stitch counts for every size. It's a good idea to check you have the right number of stitches now before you start the main crown decreases. Next, just like after the first decrease round, you knit 3 more rounds even. No more decreases, just knit every stitch. Simple. So here's how my adult hat looks after both decrease sections. 8 rounds in total. Decreasing just 4 stitches at a time every 4th round gives us this nice gentle rounding at the top. If I zoom in, you can see a knit 2 together decrease from the first round here, and then the second knit 2 together decrease 4 rounds later. But you only see these really close up. Otherwise they blend right in and you wouldn't know they were there. Now it's time to start the main crown decreases. You knit this section for all 8 hat sizes. Good news! The rest of the instructions are the same for all sizes, which keeps things simple. From now on, you will alternate between knitting a decrease round and then an even round, where you just knit every stitch, all the way to the end of the hat. The decreases will make a pretty swirl pattern on the crown of the hat. With lots of decreases ahead, it's vital you mark the end of the round from now on. I find a bulky marker on your needle can make the first decrease on each round look a bit messy, so you may prefer to attach your marker below the stitch instead. Or what I like to do is make a loose slip knot in a short bit of contrasting embroidery floss or fine yarn and put that on my needle as a marker. It's easy to see, but also barely there, so there's no bulk for a nice, neat finish. For the first crown decrease round, the instruction is to knit 2 together, knit 6, and repeat that all the way around. So we start by knitting the first 2 stitches together. Put your right tip through both the second and first stitch on your left tip, from left to right, and then knit them both together as if they were one stitch. Next, we simply knit the next 6 stitches as usual. Now it's time for the next knit 2 together decrease. So put your tip through the next 2 stitches from left to right and knit them as if they were one stitch. Then knit the next 6 stitches as usual. Then just keep repeating this pattern, alternating between knitting 2 stitches together and knitting the next 6 stitches as usual until you reach your marker. So here we are at the end of the round, and you can see the first knit 2 together decrease from the last round here. The next round, and every second round from now on, is easy peasy. Just knit every stitch. That's it. The only thing to watch out for here is to pull on your working yarn before knitting the first stitch, to keep the start of the round nice and neat with no gaps. Then simply knit all the way around until you're back at your marker. No counting needed, yay! After this round, it's time for another decrease round. On every decrease round, the only change from last time is that there will be 1 stitch less between the knit 2 together decreases, because we've fewer stitches left. So the next decrease round instruction is to knit 2 together, knit 5, and repeat all the way around. Tighten up your working yarn as usual for a nice neat first stitch. Then start the decrease round with a knit 2 together by putting your tip into the first 2 stitches and knitting them both together. Then the only thing that's different from last time is we count out the next 5 stitches instead of 6. Otherwise it's exactly the same. So go ahead and knit the next 5 stitches. Then it's time for another decrease, so go into the next pair of stitches and do a knit 2 together. And then simply knit another 5 stitches. You know the drill by now. Keep making a knit 2 together and then knitting 5 stitches over and over until the end of the round. If you look closely, you can already see the first 2 decrease rounds starting to make diagonal lines that will become clearer as you knit. So your next round is another knit even round where you just knit every stitch, and then continue knitting the rest of the crown in exactly the same way. The gap between the knit 2 together decreases just gets 1 stitch smaller on each decrease round. Now it's all good until you're near the end of the hat and suddenly knitting gets really tricky. This will happen at slightly different stages depending on the size hat you're making, your needle and your knitting style, but it will happen. Don't panic, this is totally normal. Here's what's going on and how to fix it. So here's my adult size hat with just 3 rounds left to knit. All the knit 2 together decreases have made neat diagonal lines around the hat, which will give the crown a pretty swirl pattern. You can see the finished hat shape now too. It's nice and round with just a small bit at the top left to do. There's only 30 stitches left and knitting with my circular still feels good. The next round is the second last decrease round. The instruction is to knit 2 together, knit 1 around. So you alternate between knitting a pair of stitches together and then knitting the next stitch. But soon into this round, knitting suddenly starts to feel really awkward. That's because there are now too few stitches for my circular needle. So we need to find another way to knit the final few rounds. There's 2 popular solutions, but I'm going to show you 2 other workarounds instead, which I think are easier for beginner knitters. So the 2 common ways to knit the rest of the hat are to switch to using either a set of short double-pointed needles, DPNs for short, or a long circular needle using the magic loop technique. I've a beginner's magic loop tutorial linked on screen now and in the description below. If you already know and like one of these methods, go right ahead and finish your hat. Skip to the last timestamp if you need help sewing your hat closed at the end. But if you don't know these techniques or would just like more options, keep watching to see 2 more ways to finish knitting your hat. So method 1 is what I call the extra needle method. You'll need 1 short double-pointed needle, or you can use a straight cable needle. It doesn't have to be the same thickness as your circular, any thinner size works too. In fact, a thinner needle makes it easier to move stitches around. I'm using a short 3mm DPN here, whereas our circular is a thicker 5mm needle. But what if you don't have any extra needle? Don't worry, you can still knit the rest of the hat with just your circular. Skip ahead to the next timestamp now to learn the Yank method instead. But if you have a short DPN, it's a big help here. Start using it as soon as it feels awkward to knit with your circular, even if that's mid-round like I'm doing here. The idea is we're going to move a bunch of stitches at a time to the DPN and then knit these with your right circular tip. This gives you more room to work, making knitting easier. First, divide your total stitches by 5. This gives you a ballpark for how many stitches to move at a time. It doesn't have to be exact. I've 30 stitches left, so I'll work in bunches of 6 here. I simply move the next 6 stitches across to my extra needle. And then, just for safety, I pull out the left tip, so all my stitches are safe on the cable and can't fall off. So most of the stitches are still on the circular as usual, but now I've 6 stitches on my DPN and the left tip is empty and dangling. I'm going to forget about my left circular tip for now and use my DPN as my left tip instead. So now I just go ahead and knit the next 6 stitches on my DPN using my right circular tip as usual. In this second last decrease round, the instructions are to alternate between knit 2 together and knit 1 all the way around. I need to do a knit 2 together next, so I put my right tip into the next 2 stitches and knit them together. Then I knit the next stitch. Then I need to knit the next 2 stitches together and finally knit the last stitch. Now my DPN is empty, so it's time to move the next bunch of stitches to it. Step 1 is to turn your knitting and move the next 6 stitches to the DPN. Step 2 is to pull the left circular tip out to avoid losing any stitches. And step 3 is to use your DPN as your left tip, knitting the stitches on it with your right circular tip. So just like last time, I tighten up my working yarn, put my tip through the first 2 stitches and knit them together. And then knit the next stitch. I knit the next 2 stitches together and finally knit the last stitch. Then you just keep repeating these 3 steps until the end of the round. So I'm at the end of the knit 2 together, knit 1 round now, and I've decreased from 30 to 20 stitches. One thing you might notice at the start of the round is this ladder gap, but that automatically disappears as you knit more, so just forget about it. If you like this extra needle method, keep using it for the rest of the hat. I've another tutorial linked on screen now and in the description below showing the final 4 rounds knit this way, step by step. But if you would like another option, here's another way to knit the final rounds. I call it the Yank Method. The cool thing about this is you knit the whole hat with just your circular needle. Here's how it works. Our problem is we have too few stitches for our circular. Or to put it another way, our circular is now too long. So we will yank out some cable on the left side, which shortens our circular to make knitting easier. You need to work in stages, doing a few yanks per round. So work with roughly 1/4 to 1/3 of your stitches at a time, whatever feels good to you. The next round is the last even round, where you knit every stitch. I've 20 stitches here, so I'll work in quarters, knitting 5 stitches at a time. So count the first 5 stitches and pull out some cable after that. Then move the 5 stitches up to the tip, ready to knit them. Now pulling a loop of cable out does cause the stitches either side to pull apart, but it's only temporary. You can hold both sides together in your hand to counter this if you like. Now you just need to bring your right tip around to meet the left tip and move the stitches up to that tip so you're ready to knit. As you do this, a bit of cable may pop out on the right side, or you might want to yank out a bit so things feel more comfy. But the key thing is to have the first stitches on the left tip and a loop of cable hanging out the left side. Tighten up your working yarn and then knit the first 5 stitches. Your left tip is now empty and dangling, and it's time to fetch more stitches. So turn your knitting over and count the next 5 stitches. Yank out some cable after the 5th stitch and then push the 5 stitches the rest of the way up to the left tip, ready to knit. Now you just need to turn your knitting again and bring the right tip around to meet the left. So this time I need to pull out cable on the right to get my stitches up to the tip. Once it feels good, you just knit the next 5 stitches. Until your left tip dangles empty again. We're halfway through the round now. Now just repeat the same steps for the rest of the round. Step 1, turn your knitting. Step 2, count 5 stitches. Step 3, yank out cable after the 5th stitch and move the 5 stitches to the tip. And step 4, turn your knitting and bring the right tip around to meet the left. The right tip feels good for me this time. No extra yanking needed. Finally, step 5 is to knit the 5 stitches. We've only 5 stitches left now, so one more time. Turn your knitting. You can use the end of round marker this time to see where to yank the cable out. Turn your knitting again and bring the right tip around. I actually need to yank out a bit of cable on the right this time to make it comfy to knit. Then finally, knit the last 5 stitches and that's the full round of 20 stitches done. So you can indeed knit a hat from start to finish using just a short circular by yanking cable out for the last few rounds. At last, we've reached the final round. Just knit 2 together all the way around and that's it. Yay! Because you're working in pairs of stitches here, knitting 2 stitches together all the way around, it's easier to work with an even number of stitches each time. So split your stitches up into 3 to 4 bunches, each with an even number. I've got 20 stitches in total, so I'll divide them up into bunches of 6 and 4. The Yank method is the same every round. First, count a bunch of stitches, 6 in my case. Then, pull out a loop of cable after that bunch and move your stitches up to the left tip. Then, bring your right tip around to meet the left tip and move your stitches up the right tip. See how it feels. I need to pull the right cable slightly here to get comfy. Finally, working 2 stitches at a time, knit each pair of stitches together. So put your right tip through the first 2 stitches and knit them together. Then do the same thing with the next 2 stitches, knitting those together. And finally, knit the last pair of stitches together. The left tip is empty, so we need more stitches. It's always the same steps. Step 1, turn your knitting. Step 2, count out the next bunch of stitches, 4 in my case. Step 3, pull out a loop of cord after the bunch and push the left tip to move your stitches up to the tip. And step 4, bring your right tip around to meet the left tip. It feels fine as is, so I just go ahead and do the next 2 knit 2 togethers, putting my tip into the first 2 stitches and knitting them together, and then knitting the other 2 stitches together. We're halfway there now, so we just repeat the same steps 2 more times. I count out my next bunch of 6 stitches and yank out a cable loop after that. Then I turn my knitting to bring the right tip around. But I'll need to yank out a bit of cable on the right this time to get my tips to meet. That's better. It looks a bit crazy, but feels good, so I'm ready to knit. Time for 3 more knit 2 togethers. I put my tip in the first 2 stitches and knit them together. Then knit the next 2 stitches together. And finally, I knit the last pair of stitches together. There's only 4 stitches left now, so pull out a loop of cable at your end of round marker, push your left tip to move your stitches up, turn and bring your right tip around. I'll pull on the right cable a bit with my finger to get comfy, and away we go. Knit the last 2 pairs of stitches together, and that's it. You've just knit a hat. Hooray! There's 10 stitches left for the adult size hat, but you'll have 7 to 11 stitches left depending on the size you're making. Now you just need to close the top of the hat. Leaving a good long tail, about 12 inches or 30 centimetres, cut your yarn and thread a wool or tapestry needle with the end. Thread this through every stitch on your needle tip. I find it easiest to work 1 stitch at a time, slipping each stitch off the circular tip and onto the needle. Pull the yarn through the stitches gently, leaving it a bit loose so you can still see each stitch. Then thread it through the stitches on the other tip. And again, pull through gently at the end. The reason I thread loosely is that I like to thread through all the stitches a second time. That closes the top hole nice and tightly, so it's really secure. Once you've gone through every stitch again, pull tightly and ta-da! You've just knit a hat. Congrats! Finally, you just need to weave in your ends. Watch my next hat finishing video to see that step by step. It also shows closing the top of the hat in more detail. I hope this tutorial helps you knit a hat in the round and have fun doing it. Download a free printable PDF pattern to use with this video tutorial at craftfix.com/beanie or click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.